Alright, welcome to the homework video for Chapter 1, Section 4 of Algebra 2. Here's the full homework assignment, just like always. Next, these are the problems that I'm actually going to work. Now, if you watched the lecture video, these should look really familiar. If you chose not to, then you might remember how to do these from the class lecture, but they're going to look really familiar because it's the exact same style as everything else that we've been doing. First problem, solve for the indicated variable. Okay, and it says solve for L. So we're going to take our equation here and try and isolate L. So I'm going to take the original equation and I want to get L by itself. So I have to ask myself which side of the equal sign is it on, and it is on the right hand side. So then I also have to figure out what is also on the right hand side that is not L. So I have to get rid of the W. When two things are written right next to each other, this is multiplication. So what's the opposite of that? Division. So these cancel, and you have just the L on the right hand side. Now on the left, A over W, those cannot reduce at all because one's an A and one's a W. So it just stays the way it looks. And that's your final answer. Okay, now we're going to use this answer to do the second part of the problem. So over here it says, then find the length of a rectangle with a width of 50 millimeters and an area of 250 square millimeters. So we've got A over W equals L from the previous slide. Now plug in what you know. We know that A is 250 millimeters squared, and that the width is 50 millimeters, and whatever this reduces to is going to be our L. Now this part is called unit analysis. The units are just like an X or a variable or something else that we've been dealing with where we reduce from top to bottom. So if you had millimeters squared divided by millimeters, this cancels with that. Okay, the important thing here is to understand that area is always in square units, but the width and length are always in just regular units, no squares. Okay? So this leaves us with just millimeters for our answer, and you do need units or else you will lose half a point, so make sure that you catch that. 250 divided by 50, the zeros can cancel off. 25 divided by 5 is 5. And just like that, we're done. So it's the same stuff that we've been working on. The only thing that's different is millimeters squared divided by millimeters is just millimeters. Because remember, millimeters squared over millimeters is the same thing as millimeters times millimeters. And what's anything divided by itself? It cancels off to 1, and that leaves you with just the regular millimeters, which is what we have as our units here. Okay? So the units act like their own piece. So treat them like a variable and use your regular algebraic skills. Okay? So try not to let it throw you off too much just because it looks new. Solve the equation for y, and then we're going to evaluate for when x equals 8. So again, another two-part process. So first part of the problem, rewrite your equation, and it says solve the equation for y. Whenever you see 4, you need to think equal sign. So what I'm talking about there is that we want to get y equals. Okay, so we're going to get y by itself. So y is on the left, so we always get rid of addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract an x from both sides. This cancels, and it leaves us with this. Remember, these two pieces here cannot combine because one of them has an x, one of them does not have an x, okay? Now to get y by itself, divide both sides by 4. And that leaves you with y equals 24 minus x all over 4. And that's it. Your y is by itself, and we're done. So now take that equation and rewrite it, and then use it to solve an unknown situation. So now we're going to plug in our x value that they gave us. Remember, we always work on the top first. So we're going to look at 24 minus 8. And 24 minus 8 is 16. And now we have to reduce down that fraction. So 16 divided by 4 is 4. So it's just like everything else we've been working on. We have the equation they gave us. We isolate the indicated variable. Take the new equation, plug in a known value of x, find the missing piece. Okay? So that's it. Just over and over. Same process. So this one's going to be a little bit tricky, but you should be able to handle it. So which variable are we solving for? H. Where is h? Right, it's inside the parentheses. So what that means is that, remember, parentheses are like locks. Okay, they lock everything down. And we can't touch anything inside parentheses until the parentheses are completely isolated. So I want to get this piece here by itself. So what do I have to get rid of? Right, I have to get rid of this piece. So that means that I'm going to divide both sides by pi r to get this to cancel off. So my next line is going to read s over pi r equals h plus k. So with nothing in front, behind, or under, the parentheses means that they're no longer needed. But you can only drop the parentheses when everything else in front, behind, and underneath of them are gone. And I have that, as you can tell, because we canceled. So now I have the h plus k. So now, how do I get h by itself? Right, I subtract the k. So I get s over pi r minus k outside of the division equals h. And this is going to be your final answer. It's gross, it's not super useful, but this type of manipulation you're expected to be able to do when you go off to college. And this is a skill that we're going to be using for a long time, so you can't just bypass it and expect it to magically go away. This is something that we're going to be using all of this year, all of next year, and beyond. Okay, solve the equation for y. Now, if you notice, where's y? Right, it's on the left-hand side, and how many pieces do we have with a y? Just one. So we're trying to get this by itself. So what are we going to move first? Right, we're going to move this. So how do you move a minus 3x? Right, plus 3x. So these cancel. Like that. Okay? Now, we want to get y by itself. So we have to break apart this multiplication. So we're going to use division. And we're going to get y equals 40 plus 3x all over x. Now, I will let you stop here. However, you can go further. Whenever you have a fraction like this, where you have two terms on top and only one term on the bottom, you can split this apart. So it's the first term over the denominator plus the second term over the denominator. So when it splits apart, we keep the denominator because it's common between both of these numerators. Okay? And the only reason why we would do that is so that way we can see that we have an x divided by an x, and we get this, which is a little bit more simplistic. However, if you type this in to your calculator with parentheses on the top like that, you'll get the exact same answer. So it's not necessary. However, when you take the ACT, they will expect you to be able to do this kind of math and recognize that this is the same as this. So I'm not going to necessarily require it from my course, but you do need to know how to go from step 1 here to step 2 here. Okay, then find the value of y for x equals 5. So we're going to use the top equation right here. Y equals 40 plus 3x all over x. And then just plug in the value and make sure that whenever you plug in, what do you use? Parentheses, okay? Simplify on the top. So we use multiplication first according to our order of operations. Then we do the addition. And now we simplify with the division. And that's our final answer. Alright, so it's the same processes over and over. Isolate the variable to rewrite the equation. Use the new equation and an unknown, use the new equation and a known variable so that way you can find the unknown variable. Because remember, we can only solve for one letter at a time. Okay? So that means that in order to find y, we have to know an x. Similarly, in order to find x, we need to know a y. So they go hand in hand where we can only solve for one at a time, which is why they gave us one of the variables. Okay? So it's really important that you remember that. And that's it. Those are the only types of problems that you have. And all of your homework is going to match up with one of those. So here's your homework. Good luck. And again, if you have questions, make sure you bring them in. You email me or you show up after school for tutoring or before school.